Hi everyone, I'm Ben. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do the end of year book tag before it is too late. I still haven't worked out how tags work on YouTube and whether you need to wait for someone to actually tag you in order to do a tag, but no one's asked me to do this and I'm going to do it anyway because I want to. Anyway, let's crack right on with the questions. And question one is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? Now, I am mostly a one book at a time kind of reader, so the answer generally is no, except for the book that I'm reading right now, which is The Architect's Apprentice by Elif Shafak. It's actually my second Elif Shafak book of the year and the second I've ever read of her. I didn't get on too well with the first one, but this one's really, really enjoyable actually, and it's for another video, so I'll talk in more depth about what I like about it and why. And I guess I'm about halfway through, so there's still time for that to change. Question two, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? To be honest, it feels more like winter at this point. I am freezing and resisting turning the heating on too much because of the energy crisis. But there are two things that I want from an autumnal read. I want to get spooky and I want to get cozy. For spookiness, I have already read one of Mariana Enriquez's short story collections, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. This fully delivered on spookiness, and I will talk more about it in my November wrap-up. But yeah, it checked the boxes for spookiness. And then for coziness, I haven't read this one yet, but I have got The Swallowed Man by Edward Carey. And as far as I know, this is set inside a whale, and unless your name is Beyonce, I don't think you're going to get cozier than that. So yeah, that's one coming up that will sort of help me get fully into the autumnal wintry vibes. Question three, is there a new release you're still waiting for? Had I done this tag at a more appropriate time, I probably would have said Barbara Kingsolver's Demon Copperhead, because that looks awesome. But seeing as there are only 5-6 weeks left of the year, there isn't actually much left to come out, so all of the books that I would have been interested in have already been released. I guess at this time of year you tend to just get sort of celebrity memoirs and sort of big name celebrity authors like Richard Osman releasing their books, and I'm not a big reader of those. One title I am interested in is the paperback release of a book called The Patterning Instinct by Jeremy Lent. It's a non-fiction book that came out in hardback years ago, but I heard it talked about on Radio 4's A Good Read. It's a bit like Sapiens, but it looks at things from the perspective of the ideas that underpin our history and how our current unsustainable path in terms of the environment and taking too much out of the planet isn't inevitable human nature, and humans are greedy. It's just that it's culture, and culture is something that can be changed. So I was really interested in that, although I believe it's like 700 pages. So maybe. Question four is, what are 3 books that you want to read by the end of the year? So I must read The Overstory by Richard Powers. This is a book that my book club is doing in January, so I need to get through this so that I can go along to the session. I am really excited for this actually because I loved Bewilderment by Richard Powers, which is one of, if not my favourite book from last year. He is an excellent author. This is a really long book and it won the Pulitzer Prize. So this might be my sort of Christmas break book that I tackle. Might take this home to Essex with me. Yeah, really excited for this one. Another book that I would like to get to is Still Life by Sarah Winman. I've heard only good things about this, but it's been sitting on my bedside table for months now, like literally still life, because it has not moved. It's just sat there on the pile doing nothing. So I need to finally read it because I've heard that it's just like a nice warm hug, a very lovely book. And Sarah Winman's great. I read The Tin Man and not The Tin Man, Tin Man. And yeah, that was awesome and it made me cry. finally, I do want to get to one of my growing collection of Maggie O'Farrell books because it feels silly that I've got so many and I've not read any of them. So I went to see her recently and did a video on going to that event, which I'll link in the description. But as part of that, I got my copy of Hamnet signed, which is really cool. So I think I'll probably want to try and tackle this before the end of the year as well. Question 5 is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favourite of the year? I think the Overstory could definitely be a contender for my favourite thing I read this year, but there's 2 caveats to that. One is that it wouldn't really be much of a shock because I know that I already love Richard Powers' writing and I'm expecting it to become a favourite. And second is I'm not 100% sure that I will finish it before the end of the year because it's so long. And so I may end up finishing that in early January. I think I've got about a week before my book club meet. I do have a few books that have also been sitting on my bedside table, which I'm really interested in and could sneak up on me and become favourites. And they're all fairly short books, so it's pretty possible that I'll get to them. One is The Night Always Comes by Willy Vlautin. I don't know too much about this, but I heard it recommended quite highly on a podcast called What Page Are You On? And it just sounded really interesting. He sounds like a great writer. Sounds like he's really precise with the language that he uses. So I'm really interested to read that. Another is Severance by Ling Ma, which is a pandemic book. It sounds a little bit Kafka-esque, but yeah, quite interested in that. Heard great things. And then the other is a book that I'd not heard of before called The Assault by Harry Mulisch. And this is about somewhere in Holland after the Second World War. And I think it revisits the same place at sort of 10-year intervals and looks at the impact over time of the war on a group of people and the generations that follow. So it sounds really interesting. Someone at my book club recommended it. Sounds right up my street. So really interested. Question 6. Have you already started making reading plans for next year? I have made a few actually, because it feels like I need to do more planning if I'm going to sustain a YouTube channel for more than 5 minutes. So I am considering a few sort of themed months that I might try out in 2023, because I am a fan of structure, if nothing else. One of my ideas is to make February Moshfeguri, because I feel like Atessa Moshfegh could become a favourite author of mine, but she's one of those where I've read one book, I really loved it. She's quite prominent in social media and YouTube and stuff. So I assume that I like her, but I haven't actually gone any deeper. So I might work through her whole back catalogue in February and see how I get on with it. I also want to get ahead of the game on new releases in 2023 so that I can sort of play along with Booker Prize predictions next year. I don't know tons of books that are coming out, and I know that the Booker can be littered with debut novels that may have not been released yet and we might not know anything about. So that's really exciting to know that there are some written, probably being printed right now, yet to be published books that we'll be able to get our hands on and all get excited about next year. But there are 3 books that I know I am excited about that I might try and sort of read and review as and when they come out next year. The first is The Late Americans by Brandon Taylor. I enjoyed Real Life quite a lot. It was well written, it created great mood and atmosphere. I think it wasn't perfect, but he shows great promise as an author. I haven't read his short story collection, Filthy Animals, because I just have a lot of short story collections that I've been reading and have knocking around, and I didn't really want any more at the moment. But yeah, The Late Americans sounds like it could be a pretty good read. There's also Birnham Wood by Eleanor Catton. She is the Booker Prize winning author of The Luminaries, which she won, I feel like she was 28 and it was her debut novel, and she's the youngest Booker winner ever, which is unbelievable. I haven't read The Luminaries. It's also another absolute whopper of a book, but people love it. Birnham Wood sounds interesting, and I am looking forward to it being released. Finally, Cuddy by Benjamin Myers. Now, Benjamin Myers is a really underappreciated, awesome author. I read his book, The Perfect Golden Circle, earlier this year, and it's just like a wonderful portrait of male friendship. And he's got some other real corkers that I need to get to. I don't know much about Cuddy. I only heard it the other day on Simon Savage's channel, where he mentioned that he had a copy of it and that it was coming out. But yeah, I'm all in on Benjamin Myers, so really looking forward to that one. So that was it, my end of year book tag. There's not long to go until 2023, which is kind of nuts really. But until then, I'm gonna be prepping content weekly. So if you want to check out what videos I produce over the coming weeks and months, please do subscribe, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and let me know if you've read any of the books I'm thinking about in the comments. Toodles!